Guys, if you have been using n8n, so the whole point of n8n is actually help you or make the work easier in order to connect with the platforms and integrate with the platforms, right? And there is one particular node which is actually going to do this exact same work or exact same thing that I'm talking about. If you have been using n8n or any other no-code platforms, I think you might have already understood what I'm talking about. It's called HTTP request node. So in this video, I'll be walking you through the HTTP request node. So if you are a beginner who doesn't actually have any understanding with the HTTP request node, or if you are someone who is already building out automations, I have everything covered in this video. So I have some really cool use cases that you can actually follow or use in order to make your workflows better and also like reduce errors or something like that. And if this sounds interesting, let's get started with the video. So before getting into the video, so you see this is the n8n instance that I have hosted on my own server. So if you are someone who wants to self-host n8n, whether that might be locally or if you want to host it on cloud, I actually have created a video long back. So you see this is the video that I've created, and it's one of the top performing videos in my channel as well. So I leave the link of this particular video in the cards above, and also I'll also try to add the link in the description as well. So you can actually go through that particular video to understand how to self-host it. And once you have it self-hosted, you'll have the n8n instance running on your own server. So now let's get started with the video. So I'll just try to add the first node, which is the trigger node, and let's go with the HTTP request node. So sorry, this is not the one. HTTP. Yeah. So if you are someone who is a complete beginner to no-code automation and wants to understand what exactly is a HTTP request node, so I can like I can give you a scenario where, let's say, so HTTP request node is actually a kind of a phone that you are giving to n8n to actually call different services or different integrations to actually get the response and something like that. So I mean, this is just the scenario or the example that I've given you. And here, so let's say if you want to make a call in that, like if we take that particular scenario, if you want to make a call, you need the mobile number, right? So here, you can like consider that as the URL, which we call it as an endpoint. So, and in order to make the call, like we have WhatsApp call or the normal call. I mean, I'm just giving out a random example, so just to make you understand. And these are the different methods that we'll be calling the API endpoint. And some of the popular ones that we would be using is get request and post request. And we'll be using put, like, I mean, this is a very rare case. Like most of us will be going ahead with the post and get request 99% of the times. So that's with the method. And in order to make sure you are the right person who is sending out the request, or you, if I mean, this is like the identity for your request. So that's where we'll be adding out our headers. So that's where the authorization exactly happens. And the next thing is the body. This is where you'll be sending out the body. This is the basic overview of the HTTP node. I think you have got the understanding of it. And now let's try to make an API call to help you understand how this particular node is going to be working. So let's say if you want to integrate like let's say you know the platform OpenRouter, right? So let's say if you want to integrate OpenRouter or use OpenRouter in the n8n, so the only way that you can use, either if you want to use it with the AI agent, you can go ahead and use it. So like if I just type in OpenAI, you see we have nodes for OpenAI, and if I type in maybe a Perplexity, you'll have the specific node for Perplexity. But for the Open Router, we don't have a specific node that is built out in n8n. So this is the chat model which will be integrating with the AI agent, but this is not the direct node that you can use it. So here, as we don't have the node by default in n8n, what we can try to do is we can try to make an HTTP request to the API of OpenRouter to get the response. That's where, I mean, this is the whole point of HTTP request. You'll be calling an external service to get the response and try to use that particular response in your workflow. So if I want to go ahead and make the request for the open router, like as I have told you, we need the method, we need the URL, we need the authorization, which is the send headers, and we also need the body. So in order to get all these, so whatever the platform that you are using, let's say in my case, I'm using open router. If I go into a new tab and type in for open router, I'll just type in for OpenRouter API docs. You just have to put in the platform name and just type in API docs or API documentation. So you'll be actually getting a documentation here, which you can actually use to go ahead and try to interact with it. So this is the documentation that you would be having for all the platforms which has API integration for it. And now I'll just try to go to the OpenRouter and just try to create a free account. And I mean, in my case, I have some credits that I have loaded up. So if you don't have any credits, you can go ahead and test it out with the free models. So what I'll do is I'll just maybe try to go with Perplexity Sonar. I mean, so if you want to get all the models that are there here, like let's say if you want to get all the free models, you can sort it out from pricing low to high. So you'll get all the free models first. So that's when you can go ahead and test out the free models if you want to. Okay, now in this video, let's just go with the GPT OSS. So let's say if you want to actually make a API request to this particular model using the OpenRouter platform, so you just have to create a free account and just come over here. So you'll have the option called, let's go to quick start here. And you'll have if you don't have the API key, you can either create it from here, or else you can just go to your profile and go to keys and just try to create an API key. I'll do that as well. So here, so for all the HTTP requests that we'll be making with the curl commands. So this is the curl command. And so like here, like most of the times you'd be specified with the request type that you'd be making, but as you are sending out the request, so this is going to be a post request even though it's not mentioned here. So this is the endpoint URL that we have to copy, and then I'll go back to n8n and I'll just copy paste this out, and I'll choose it as the post request. And the next thing that I have to take care of here is going to be the authorization, which is the headers here. So you see dash h and dash h, right? So these two are the headers that you have to configure in n8n. So I'll just try to copy this. Like you just have to copy the exact same things. So in the name, just paste this out, and in the value, so just find this one and just copy this and go back to n8 and paste this out, and you have to add another one, right? So just click on add parameter, and you'll have another parameter which is authorization here. Just copy that and go back to n8 and the same way you just have to add it. So here if you see, the thing that we have to add here is the API key. So what I'll do is I'll just copy until here, and I'll just paste it out here. Now what we have to do is we have to get the API key from the open router. So to do that, just go to your profile and go to keys, and here just click on create API key, and you can name it whatever you want. I'll just name it HTTP underscore demo so that I can delete it later. And I'll just try to maybe keep it as 1 hour so that the video recording would be completed. And I'll just try to click on create, and I'll be getting the API key. And I just have to copy this key and go back to n8n. I just have to paste it over here. So now we are done with the setting up of headers, which is going to tell open router that this is just the identity that you have to prove that you are the one who is sending the request. So make sure you don't share these API keys with anyone. If you try to share them out, whatever they try to use, you'll have to pay the bill for it. If you are ready, then go for it. And the next thing that you have to do here is I'll just go back here to the same API documentation. I'll choose curl. So this is the body. I'll just try to copy this out over here, and I'll go back to n8n and I'll click on send body. So here you'll have different types to send out the body, but I'll actually try to go ahead with JSON, which is the structure that we are using here. And as you can see, these are the you can consider these as the parameters, which is the model that we are using is this particular model with the ID. And so that's how, I mean, like, let's say if you want to update the prompt, you have to just go ahead and update it over here. As of now, I'll just leave it by default. And as you see that this is the reasoning model, which is the GPT OSS. So if you want the reasoning to be enabled, you just have to put it out in this way. If you are using a normal model, you'll not have this. So now that's it. We have completely set up the thing. If I go ahead and click on execute step, you'll actually see that we'll be getting a response from the AI model. Like you see, we have got the response. And here we have three different views. So I'll just, like, schema would be the most what do you say, convenient one to be used, like in order to view it. So you'll have the a reasoning here, and if you want to go ahead and check with the response of it, I think it's going to be under the content. Yeah, so you see, this is the one that like, I mean, this is a reasoning model, right? So it's actually coming out with the reasoning, and that's how you'll have to set up the HTTP request node and try to use it. So now let's try to what do you say, try to get some cool features out of this node, which most of the people would not be using. So the first thing that I really want to show you here is, so I'll just try to delete out this particular node, and I'll just try to add HTTP request node again. Now you see this is completely empty, right? What we have done previously was we have copied each and everything manually, and then we went ahead with the copy and paste, copy and paste. Now I'll just try to copy the entire command, like the curl command, and I'll go back here. You see this option which says import curl. Just click on that. You just have to paste in the command here and just try to click on import. Now you see, we'll have the exact same thing imported in the like, you see, we have the all the things like the URL, method, and also the headers that we have to use. You just have to update the API key here. So this is something that we have in n8n, which most people don't actually use. And you see, we have everything over here, exactly the one that we have copied and pasted here. This is one cool feature which most of the people would not actually use. And for the next one that I want to show you, so you remember we have actually went ahead and created the API key, right? So if you want to go ahead and like view that same API key and try to copy it again, no platform would allow you to do that because of the security reasons. So for that, what you would be doing is you'd be storing that in a notepad or something like that. But here, if I remove, I mean, if I try to delete the node and try to add it again, I just have to get my OpenRouter key again. So in order to skip that particular part, what you can actually do here is, I'll go back and I'll go back to overview. I'll just save this out and I'll go back to credentials here. So you see, we have all these credentials that I have linked out. What I'll try to do is I'll just try to click on a create credential and I'll type in open router and I'll just click on continue. And you see, if we directly paste out the API key here, as I've pasted this out and I'm going to name it as test n8n. So if I'll just try to save this out. And we now have tested the connection and it's successful. And now I'm back in the same previous flow that we were talking about. And what I'll do now is, you see authentication here, which is by default set to none, right? What I'll try to do is I'll try to click on predefined credential type and I'll try to choose the open router credential. And you see, we have all the different credentials that I have. These are the two ones that I have added previously. And this is the one that I just added in the video. So I just have to click on this particular one and I don't need to send headers again. So now if I try to go ahead and execute this particular step, you see, we have the response, because without sending our headers, we are actually authenticating it with the predefined credential that we have already stored in n8n. So in this way, you don't have to mess up with the, like, you don't have to copy and paste and store these API keys. So that's something that we have also in n8n. And then let's see the next feature or the next cool thing that we are going to talk about. Okay, so now we'll be actually going a bit forward and try to understand a scenario. So let's say for every API endpoint, there is going to be a rate limit that is going to be set by the developer of the API. And let's say if you have, let's say, we have to consider a scenario here. I'll try to consider a scenario where I have 10 GitHub repo usernames, and I have to call GitHub API or GitHub third-party API or something like that to get the profile details or something like that. I mean, I just used GitHub as an example. You can use Twitter or whatever it might be. And let's say if you are trying to make the same 10 API requests from the same account at once, let's say if they set the rate limit, in that case, HTTP request node is actually going to show up an error. So what you can try to do here is, there is an option called batching. And if I click on add option here, you'll see an option called batching. So here what you can try to do is, let's say if the rate limit is like, I mean, you'll be knowing the rate limit obviously in the documentation. Let's say you have, I told you that you have 10 different usernames, right? So you'll be actually sending only one username at a time, and you'll be waiting 1 second. Let's say you'll be sending only one username, and you'll have to wait another second to send the second request. In that way, you can actually try to avoid the rate limiting that is going to be there. So with this, you can directly set out this has to be in the milliseconds. So in our scenario, what I'm trying to tell n8n here is you have to only make one API request or with the particular one data or something that you have, and you have to wait another second before making the second one. So that's something how the batching actually works. So this is going to be helpful if you are actually hitting rate limits. If you have been using n8n and trying to create production based workflows, I think you might actually understand what I'm talking about. So that can be actually fixed with this particular approach that you can use. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about here is if I go to settings over here, so you see we have an option called retry on fail. So I mean, if you are using the direct APIs, I think you won't have this problem. But if you are trying to use third-party APIs like maybe from Rapid API, Apify, or something like that, some of the times the API won't actually trigger. You'll be getting an error. What you can actually try to do is you can try to click on this, like you can turn this option on, where like if there is an error with this particular first time a call that it has made, it is going to try it out again. So let's say if I set this out as 2, and if I set this out as maybe 5000 milliseconds, so what this is going to do is whenever I try to, like whenever this particular node tries to make an API request, let's say for the first time, if it fails, it's going to retry it again after 5 seconds. In that same way, if it still fails, it's going to try it again because we have actually asked it to try it twice. And even if it's not like connecting with it, then it's going to be moved. So if it's not responding for more than 2 or 3 times, then the API might be down. So in this way, you can actually try to avoid those scenarios where some of the times you'd be like the API is up and running, but some of the times you'd be getting an error, or like the API server is not responding or something like that. With this, another thing that's available by default, you can actually go, I mean, you can also try it out by making a loop or something like that, but this is way simpler to proceed with it. And this is one thing. And the next thing that I want to talk about is called this particular one, which is called on error. So let's say if you have sent out an API request, so we call it as a status code. If it's a 200 status code that you have received with the response, so I mean, if it's a 200, then you'll be receiving the response, which like concludes that the API call is successful or you got the response. But some of the times we have different type of like the status codes, like we have 400 series and we have 500 series, where like each error code is actually going to what you said define that particular error. What you can actually try to do is, so we have three different options here. So like I'll just try to do one thing. I'll go back here and I'll try to add a edit node, set fields, text. This is just for the demo. I'll just try to tell you what I'm trying to do here. So I'll go back. I'll just try to execute the flow. As you can see now, the flow is successfully executed. We now have the response, and also this particular response is actually stored in a variable called text. But this is the flow that I'm talking about and is working perfectly. I'll just try to make a small change so that it pops out with an error. I'll just try to execute the flow now. You see now the flow is actually like we have an error here. So what happened here is the flow got what you say completely stopped out. The flow did not completely execute. As you can see, the like the last node that we have here is not at all initiated. So what is actually happening here is the flow is actually getting stopped over here and it's not moving from here. So like based on the errors that you have, if you want to go ahead and retry the flow based out of the error, what you can actually try to do is if you override to the settings and go to this particular scenario, so you can actually you have two different options. One is continue, even though you have an error, you'll be continuing to the next step. That's one thing. And the other thing is continue using error output. So like here you'd be getting the output where you can actually take over the status code and then try to understand like if it's the status code that can be retried or something like that. What you can actually do is you can try to connect it back with a loop and then use that particular http request node again to make the request and get the response. So if I now try to just go ahead with the continue, and I mean now we'll still get the error, but you see the difference between the previous scenario and now. Okay, so you see we have an error which says method not allowed. And also, if I go back here, you see this particular node is also executed. So the complete flow is executed, but still we have an error here, which it skipped because we have actually asked it to skip in the settings. We actually put it as continue. This is it for the features that I just want to show you out. I mean, these are the ones that are available and are useful, but not being used by a lot of people, which would save a lot of time. In the case of this particular one, like I've told you in the retry on fail, if you want to do that manually, you just have to go ahead and create a loop with the different things. So that's it for the video. I hope you found this video helpful. If you find it helpful, just give it a like. I have a community link in the description. If you have any questions, you can join that free community which is available. So me or any other person in the community would be happy to help you out if you have any questions. And if you are building SaaS or if you are building anything in that matter, you can directly come over to the Twitter and you can build in public to reach out to the more people, and you can also connect with me there. I'd be happy to show you, like see your product and try to, if you have any questions, you can also connect with me on Twitter as well. And that's it for the video, and I'll see you in the next one.